romper room where we ball a break. Big wins, big losses, all at stake. Party vibe, poker life, always crunk. Feel rich, feel broke, that's just the funk, yeah. Seen boys rise, seen boys fall. Bluffing stacks, risking it all. Got the queens, thought I locked the pot. Straight flush flip, now I'm feeling shot. It's the hustle, it's the grind, no time to assume. All in a full life in the romper room.
What's up, you degenerates? Back for more punishment at the Romper Room Poker Podcast. We're tackling the age-old question that's probably caused more arguments than bad beats. Cash games versus tournaments. Which one's the goddamn king?
It's like trying to figure out who would win a fight, Phil Hellmuth or a donkey.
Oh man, that's a tough one. But hey, before we go off the rails, big shout out to one of our listeners for sending us a stack of articles on this. Deep strategy stuff, not the usual fluff.
Yeah, we're talking about the stuff that separates the pros from the, well, you know.
Exactly. The fish. So grab your beers, strap in, and let's rip into this. First up, variance. Tournaments are a roller coaster, right? You can play your ass off and still hit a nasty downswing before you see a big win.
One article even mentioned a scenario where you could play 50 tournaments at the World Series of Poker and not cash a single one.
Shit, that's brutal. I'd probably need therapy after that.
It's tough, man, but that's the reality of tournament poker. You got to be mentally prepared for those dry spells and have a bankroll that can handle the punches.
Speaking of bankrolls, how much goddamn money do you need to play these things?
Well, one source suggested a separate tournament bankroll, at least 300 times your average buy-in.
So if I'm playing $100 tournaments, I need 30 grand.
It sounds crazy, but that's the discipline needed to survive in the tournament world. Those swings can be rough, and you don't want to play scared because you're worried about going broke.
Makes sense, but damn, that's a lot of cash. Cash games seem a bit easier on the wallet, right?
Yeah, you can get away with a smaller bankroll in cash games, but be smart. The general rule is at least 20 buy-ins for the stakes you're playing.
So for those of us without a trust fund, cash games might be the way to go.
It's a good starting point for most players. Start small, build your bankroll, and sharpen your skills.
And speaking of skills, let's get into the strategic differences between these two beasts. Tournaments are a whole different ballgame compared to cash games.
Totally different. One big thing is ICM, independent chip model. It's a way of calculating the real money value of your chips at different stages of a tournament.
Hold on, my brain just went on tilt. Explain that like I'm 5.
All right, picture this. You're at the final table, and the pay jumps are getting big. You have a decent stack, but you're up against a bigger stack. In a cash game, you'd be happy to go all in with a good hand, hoping to double up.
Right, because in cash games, double the chips, double the money. Easy.
But in a tournament, ICM says your chips are worth more when there are fewer players left. So even though doubling up would give you a bigger stack, it might actually hurt your overall chances if you lose the hand.
So you're saying it's not always about going for the kill in tournaments. Sometimes it's smarter to play it safe and protect your equity.
Exactly. ICM is all about calculated decisions, weighing the risk of getting knocked out against the potential rewards of more chips.
Damn, that's some next-level thinking.
But that's what makes tournament poker so challenging and rewarding. You need to think strategically, adapt, and make tough decisions under pressure.
And speaking of pressure, let's talk about another difference between cash games and tournaments. Antes. Those little bastards can really change the game, can't they?
Absolutely. Antes add more dead money to the pot before the flop, which makes people play looser and more aggressively.
Yeah, one of the articles said opening aces pre-flop with antes is worth over 13 big blinds, compared to just under 10 in a cash game without antes.
Huge difference. You need to adjust your pre-flop strategy in tournaments. Can't just wait for premium hands. You got to gamble a bit more, steal blinds, and build your stack.
So basically, tournaments are like a Wild West shootout, while cash games are more like a chess match.
That's a pretty good analogy.
Yeah.
Pretty good. But even in cash games, you got to have some balls to win.
Like, absolutely. But the strategic approach is different. One thing the articles talked about was deep stack play in cash games. You know, those long battles where both players have over 100 big blinds?
Yeah. It's where you really get to show off your poker skills. Deep stack play is all about maximizing your value bets, crafting those tricky bluffs, and just outplaying your opponent over multiple streets.
It's like a poker marathon, testing your endurance and your strategic thinking. But in tournaments, the stack sizes are always changing, right?
Exactly. 1 minute you're deep stacked, the next you're short stacked praying for a double up. It's constant adjustments. which makes tournament strategy so dynamic.
So what kind of adjustments are we talking about? Give us some juicy details.
Well, when you're short-stacked in a tournament, survival is key. You got to pick your spots carefully, shove those chips in with the right hands, and basically play like a maniac.
I like it. But when you're deep stack, it sounds like you need a different approach.
Definitely. One of the sources mentioned range advantage. Basically, when you have a deep stack, you can play a wider range of hands profitably, putting pressure on your opponents and controlling the pot.
So it's not just about waiting for aces and kings. You got to mix it up. Keep your opponents guessing.
Exactly. And bet sizing becomes super important in deep stacked pots. You need to bet big enough to get value when you have the nuts, but also small enough to make your bluffs believable.
So it sounds like there's a lot more to deep stack play than I thought.
Definitely. It's a really interesting part of poker that requires a deep understanding of hand ranges, bet sizing, and your opponent's tendencies.
All right, let's switch gears for a bit and talk about something that's crucial in both cash games and tournaments. The mental game shit can get pretty intense at the poker table, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially in tournaments, the swings can be brutal.
One article even said tournament grinders have to be in sicko mode all the time, like immune to tilt, just keep grinding no matter what.
It's a different type of player, for sure. They thrive in the chaos, the pressure, the emotional roller coaster of tournament poker.
But for the rest of us, how do you handle the mental stress of this game?
Well, you need to develop coping mechanisms and learn how to manage your emotions. One simple but powerful technique is taking breaks.
Breaks, like actually getting up and walking away from the table.
Exactly. If you're feeling tilted, frustrated, or just mentally exhausted, stepping away from the game for a few minutes can really help your mindset.
Like hitting the reset button in your brain. I can see how that would be helpful.
Another good technique is meditation or mindfulness exercises.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me to meditate at the poker table?
Not necessarily at the table, but incorporating meditation into your daily routine can help you develop focus, discipline, and emotional control, which are all crucial skills for poker.
Okay, I'm willing to try it. But what about those moments when you're in the middle of a hand and you feel yourself tilting? Any tips for those situations?
One thing you can try is focusing on your breathing. Take a few deep breaths, slow down your heart rate, and remind yourself to stay calm.
Sounds simple, but I guess sometimes the simplest solutions are the best.
Absolutely. And remember, poker is a game of ups and downs. You're going to experience bad beats, coolers, and moments of frustration. The key is to not let those moments define you. Learn from your mistakes, stay positive, and keep grinding.
So it's all about resilience, mental toughness, and not letting the bad beats get to you.
Exactly. And that applies to both cash games and tournaments.
All right, let's switch gears again and talk about something that might surprise our listeners: lifestyle. It sounds crazy, but the articles suggested that the poker format you choose can actually affect your lifestyle.
It makes sense when you think about it. Tournaments with their long hours and unpredictable schedules can definitely be hard on your personal life.
You're basically stuck with whatever the tournament structure is. You could be in a casino for days, missing out on family time, social events, and, basic hygiene.
It's not the most glamorous lifestyle, that's for sure. But for some players, that's part of the appeal. They thrive on the adrenaline, the competition, the chance to travel the world and chase those big wins.
It's like the life of a poker rock star. Living on the edge, playing high-stakes tournaments, and partying with models and celebrities.
Well, the reality is probably a bit less exciting. But there's no doubt that tournament poker can be exciting and adventurous.
But what about those of us who prefer a more stable, balanced lifestyle?
That's where cash games come in. With cash games, you can set your own hours, play when you want, and take breaks when you need them. It's a much more sustainable way to play poker, especially if you have other things going on in your life.
So if you have a family, a job, or just like to get a good night's sleep, cash games might be a better option.
Exactly. It lets you play poker without it taking over your life.
And honestly, there's something to be said for the consistency and predictability of cash games. You're not on that emotional roller coaster like in tournaments, where you can go from winning to losing in a single hand.
It's a more grounded experience. You're focused on making good decisions, hand after hand, session after session. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
And speaking of marathons, let's wrap up this discussion and get to the big question. Which format is better, cash games or tournaments?
Well, after all this back and forth, I think it's clear there's no right answer.
Damn, I was hoping for a clear winner.
I know. It's a cop-out. But the truth is, the best format for you depends on you, your personality, your goals, and your lifestyle.
All right, fair enough. So for those of us who are still undecided, what should we consider when choosing between cash games and tournaments?
First, think about your risk tolerance. Are you someone who loves the excitement of big wins and big losses? Or do you prefer a more consistent grind?
So if you're a gambler who loves the thrill, go for tournaments. If you're more calculated and like stability, stick to cash games.
That's one way to put it.
What else should we be thinking about?
Another important factor is your bankroll. Like we talked about earlier, tournaments need a much bigger bankroll to handle the swings. So if you don't have a lot of money to play with cash games, it might be safer.
Makes sense. You don't want to lose all your money in one tournament and be broke.
Exactly. And lastly, you need to think about your lifestyle and how much time you have. If you're busy and can only play poker sometimes, cash games are more flexible.
Yeah, you can jump in and out of a cash game whenever you want, but tournaments take more time.
So there you have it. Risk tolerance, bankroll, and lifestyle. Those are the three main things to consider when choosing between cash games and tournaments.
And of course, you can always play both.
Absolutely. A lot of good poker players play both formats. They like the variety and the challenges of each one. You know, as we're wrapping this whole thing up, one thing keeps coming back to me. It's something we often forget when we're talking about strategy.
What's that? Don't leave me in suspense.
It's the human element.
Yeah.
We're not just playing against cards or some computer program. We're playing against other people.
Yeah, man, that's what makes poker so much more interesting than playing slots or something.
Right. You got to get inside your opponent's head. Figure out their tells. Use their weaknesses. It's a battle of wits, a mind game.
And that's where experience really matters. You can read all the strategy books you want, but nothing beats actually playing and watching how other people react.
Exactly. You start to notice these little patterns, these subtle things that tell you what your opponent is thinking. It's like developing a sixth sense for poker.
And that's important for both cash games and tournaments, right?
Absolutely. Doesn't matter if you're playing for cash or a bracelet. Being able to read people is a huge advantage.
So how do you learn to do that? Is it something you're born with, or can you develop it?
I think it's a bit of both. Some people are naturally better at it, but anyone can improve with practice.
Any tips?
Yeah.
How can we get better at reading people at the poker table?
Well, first you got to pay attention. Don't just focus on your own cards and the action. Watch your opponents, their body language, their facial expressions, how they bet.
So basically, become a poker detective.
Yeah.
Looking for clues.
Exactly. And take notes. Write down those little observations, the patterns you see. It'll help you build a profile of your opponents, so you can use that information later.
Smart. It's like having a cheat sheet on how to beat them.
And the more you play, the better you'll get. It takes time and practice.
So it's not just about memorizing stuff. It's about understanding how people think. The art of deception. All those little things that give away a player's true intentions.
Damn, you're getting all poetic on me.
Hey, I have my moments.
Fair enough. But you're right, poker is more than just numbers and odds. It's about the people. And being able to read them is what separates the good players from the great ones.
And that's a lesson that applies to life in general, don't you think? Being able to read people is useful in all kinds of situations.
Absolutely. Business deals, relationships, just navigating the world. Knowing what people are thinking can give you a big advantage.
Wow. Now I'm getting all philosophical. We've uncovered a deep truth here.
We have, haven't we? Poker is like a mirror of life.
Okay, let's not get too deep here.
Right. We've talked about a lot today. The strategy of cash games and tournaments, the psychology of poker.
And hopefully we've given our listeners some good advice to help them improve their game.
Now go out there, play your best, and remember, it's not just about the cards you get, it's about how you play them.
And have fun while you're at it.
Until next time, may the poker gods be with you.
And may your bluffs be as strong as Phil Hellmuth's ego. Peace out, poker fam.
Romper room where we ball a break. Big wins, big losses, all at stake. Party vibe, poker life, always crunk. Feel rich, feel broke, that's just the funk, yeah. Seen boys rise, seen boys fall. Bluffing stacks, risking it all. Got the queens, thought I locked the pot. Straight flush flip, now I'm feeling shot. It's the hustle, it's the grind, no time to assume. All in a full life in the romper room.